The ship landed on Prime just as the two suns began to set, stepped off the ramp and felt the heavy air press against her chest. The gravity here was stronger than Earth. Her legs felt like they were filled with sand. She was 22 years old. She stood at 165 centimeters tall. Her arms were thin. Her body was small. By human standards, she was average. By galactic standards, she was nothing. The Galactic Military Academy stood before her like a mountain made of black stone. It was the most famous school in 12 star systems. Only the strongest warriors came here. Only the best survived. Picked up her bag and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the halls were filled with aliens of every kind. They were the most common. They stood 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin like gray rock. Their muscles were so big that could see the veins moving beneath their flesh. They were shorter but covered in hard shells that could stop bullets. They had 6 legs and moved like water. Every species here was built for war. And then there was one small human girl with thin arms and soft skin. She felt their eyes on her as she walked. She heard their whispers. "Is that the human? She looks like a child. Why did they send her?" Kept walking. She did not look at them. She did not respond. The registration hall was a large room with high ceilings. Hundreds of new cadets stood in lines, waiting for their assessment. Joined the back of the longest line and waited. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, she reached the front. An officer looked down at her from behind a metal desk. His name tag said instructor. His 4 eyes studied her like she was an insect. "Name?" he asked. His voice was deep and rough. "Human delegation." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I see. The humans finally sent someone." He typed something into his device. "Your entrance trial is in 1 hour, the training yard. Do not be late." Nodded and walked away. The training yard was an open area the size of 10 football fields. Thousands of cadets had gathered to watch the entrance trials. In the center stood a simple gray stone block. It was the initiate stone. Every new cadet had to lift it to prove their basic strength. The stone weighed 200 kilograms. Watched as cadet after cadet stepped forward. They lifted it easily with 1 arm. They raised it above their heads without effort. Even the smallest aliens managed to pick it up. Then her name was called. The crowd went quiet. Then someone laughed. Then everyone laughed. Walked to the center of the yard. The stone sat before her, cold and heavy. She could feel thousands of eyes watching her. She could hear their mocking voices. "This should be funny. 10 credits says she cannot even move it. The humans are a joke." Bent down and wrapped her hands around the stone. She took a deep breath. Then she pulled. Her muscles screamed, her back bent, her face turned red with effort. The stone rose from the ground, 1 centimeter, 5, 10. Then it fell. Stumbled backward, breathing hard. Her arms were shaking. She had lifted it only to her knees before her strength gave out. The laughter was deafening now. A tall figure stepped out of the crowd. He was with golden marks on his gray skin. The marks meant he came from a noble family. His name was, and he was the best cadet in his year. "Is this what humanity sends?" asked loudly. "This weak little thing." He walked around in a slow circle. "Perhaps you can carry our water pouches or clean our training equipment. That seems more suited to your abilities." More laughter. Said nothing. She simply stood there catching her breath. From a raised platform, Commandant watched in silence. He was a general with a shell covered in battle scars. He had commanded armies. He had won wars. He had seen millions of soldiers in his lifetime. He marked file with the lowest score in Academy history. "She stays only because of the treaty with the humans," announced. "Do not expect her to graduate. Do not expect her to matter." The crowd cheered. Bowed to the commandant. Then she turned and walked away from the training yard. She walked past the laughing cadets. She walked past the mocking instructors. She walked until she reached her assigned quarters. It was the smallest room in the academy. It was far from the training halls. It was meant for failures. Sat on the hard bed and looked at her thin arms. She could still hear the laughter in her head. That night her older brother Ho called from Earth's orbital station. His face appeared on her small screen. He looked worried. "I heard what happened," he said. "The whole human fleet is talking about it. They laughed at me. I know. They said I was weak." "You are weak right now today." Ho leaned closer to the screen. "But that is not how our story ends, little sister. That is how it begins." Looked at her brother. "What do I do?" "You do what humans have always done. You adapt, you grow, you become something they cannot imagine." He smiled. "They see you as you are today. They do not see what you will become tomorrow." The call ended. Sat in the dark for a long time. Then she stood up. She walked to the corner of her room. She got down on the floor. And she began to do push-ups. 1, 2, 3. Her arms burned. Her body shook. 4, 5, 6. She would not stop. She would never stop. The galaxy had studied humans for 50 years. They had written thousands of reports. They had measured human bones, human muscles, human brains. They thought they understood everything about the strange species from the small blue planet. They were wrong. What the aliens never understood was simple. Humans were not born strong. They became strong. And there was no limit to how strong they could become. A child at age 10 had 90% of the strength they would ever have. Their muscles grew fast and then stopped. A shell hardened before they reached adulthood. It never changed after that. Every species in the galaxy had a ceiling, a maximum, a point where growth ended. Humans had no ceiling. Their muscles tore and rebuilt themselves stronger. Their bones grew denser under pressure. Their hearts pumped harder when pushed. Their bodies were not finished products. They were works in progress, always changing, always adapting, always becoming more. This was the secret humans kept. Understood this secret better than most. Her brother had taught her since childhood. Her father had trained soldiers his whole life. She knew what human bodies could do if pushed hard enough. So she pushed. Every night after the other cadets went asleep began her training. She ran the perimeter of the academy. It was 15 kilometers of rough ground. The first night, she could only finish half before her legs gave out. The second night, she finished but could not walk for an hour afterward. By the end of the first week, she finished the run and then did it again. The academy had gravity control rooms. Different sections could be set to different gravity levels. Found the maintenance tunnels that connected these rooms. She trained in sections set to 1.8 times normal gravity. Every step was nearly twice as hard. Every movement cost twice the energy. When she returned to normal gravity, she felt like she was flying. Her hands bled from pull-ups on the rough metal pipes. The blood dried, the skin tore again. Then it healed and grew thick and hard like leather. She welcomed the pain. Pain meant change. Pain meant growth. Weeks passed. During the day, she attended classes like every other cadet. She learned combat theory. She studied starship tactics. She failed the physical tests, always finishing last. The other cadets continued to mock her, made it his personal mission to make her life difficult. He knocked her training equipment to the ground. He pushed her in the hallways. He called her names that had no translation in human language. Never responded. She simply picked up her equipment and continued. Instructor was worse. He gave her impossible tasks. Carry this weight up the hill. Complete this obstacle course in half the normal time. Fight these 3 opponents at once. He wanted her to fail publicly. He wanted to prove that humans did not belong. She failed every time, in front of everyone. But she noticed something. Each time she failed a little less. Each time she lasted a little longer. Each time the weight felt a little lighter. 2 months into her training, A human engineer named found her in the maintenance tunnels, worked on the Academy's life support systems. She was 30 years old with kind eyes and careful hands. "I have been watching you," said. "Every night, training alone, pushing yourself." Stopped her exercises, sweat dripped from her face. "Are you going to report me?" "No," held out a small package. "I am going to help you." The package contained protein supplements, special food designed for human muscle growth. It was expensive and hard to find outside Earth's territory. "Why?" asked. "Because I am human too, and I want to see what happens when one of us refuses to quit." From that night on, becomes ally. She smuggled food and supplements. She adjusted the gravity controls to help's training. She monitored health with stolen medical equipment. 3 months after arrived at the academy, ran a full body scan. The results made her hands shake. "This is impossible," whispered. "What did you find?" "Your muscle density has increased by 40%. Your bone structure shows significant calcium deposits. Your cardiovascular efficiency is up by 30%. Looked at her screen like it was lying to her. No species has ever shown this level of adaptation in such a short time. Smiled for the first time in months. No alien species. How? This goes against everything we know about biology. It goes against what they know. Stood up and stretched. Her body moved differently now, smoother, stronger. Humans are different. We do not have limits. We only have starting points. Outside, the academy continued as normal, bragged about his strength. The other species looked down on the single human cadet who could not even lift the initiate's stone. The instructors prepared for graduation trials, certain that would fail and prove that humans were the weakest species in the galaxy. They did not see her training in the dark. They did not see the changes happening inside her body. They measured her once on her worst day, and they thought that was all she would ever be. 6 months passed, then 9, then a full year. Kept failing her public tests. She kept finishing last in every competition. She kept letting them laugh. But every night, in the secret corners of the academy, she grew stronger. Ran monthly scans. Each report was more shocking than the last. His body was becoming something new, not alien, not superhuman, just more human than any human had ever been before. "The final trial is next month," said one night. "The wielding. They are going to try to lift the blade of." Nodded. She had heard about the blade. It weighed 2,000 kilograms. In 10,000 years, only 9 warriors had ever lifted it. "You cannot be serious," said. "The blade is impossible, even the fail." Did not answer. She simply walked to the gravity control room and set it to maximum. Then she began to train. The Temple of was older than the academy itself. It stood at the heart of Prime like a sleeping giant made of black stone. The walls were carved with the names of warriors who had proven themselves worthy over 10,000 years. Only 9 names were carved in gold. Those were the warriors who had lifted the blade. On the day of the wielding, every cadet gathered inside the temple. The room was vast and circular with high ceilings that disappeared into darkness. Torches burned along the walls, casting dancing shadows across the ancient stone. In the center of the room, on a platform of pure metal, rested the blade of. It was beautiful. The metal was black with veins of silver running through it like frozen lightning. The blade was 3 meters long. The handle was wrapped in the skin of some creature that no longer existed. It had been forged from the core of a collapsed star. The metal was so dense that it bent light around its edges. It weighed 2,000 kilograms. Commandant stood before the gathered cadets. His shell gleamed in the torchlight. His voice echoed through the temple. "The wielding is the final trial. It separates soldiers from legends. Those who lift the blade will command their own fleet. They will lead armies. They will shape the future of the galaxy." He paused. "Those who fail will remain what they are, nothing more, nothing less." The cadets shifted nervously. Even the strongest among them looked at the blade with fear in their eyes. "Who will try first?" asked. Stepped forward immediately. Of course he did. He was the best cadet in the academy. His 4 arms had won every strength competition for 3 years. His family name was famous across the... "I will lift it," announced, "for the glory of the people." He walked to the platform with confidence. His gray skin stretched over muscles that had been trained since birth. His 4 hands wrapped around the handle of the blade. He took a deep breath. Then he pulled. Every muscle in his body activated at once. His arms bulged. His legs shook. The veins on his neck stood out like ropes. He roared with effort. The sound filled the temple like thunder. The blade moved. 10 centimeters, 20, 30. The crowd gasped. No one had lifted it so high in 100 years. But then his arms began to shake. His roar became a scream. The blade slowed. It stopped. And then it fell. The crash echoed through the temple. Stumbled backward, his 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. His chest heaved. His eyes were wide with shock. He had failed. Other cadets tried after him, though with their powerful shells, though with their 6 strong legs. Species after species stepped up to the blade. Some lifted it a few centimeters. Most could not move it at all. No one came close to his attempt. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, instructor spoke. His voice was full of mockery. "Perhaps the human wishes to try, for entertainment." The crowd erupted in laughter, stood at the back of the temple, nearly invisible among the huge alien bodies. She had watched every attempt in silence. She had not moved. She had not spoken. "Yes," she said, "I will try." The laughter grew louder. "This should be good," someone shouted. She could not even lift the initiate's stone. Someone help her find the handle. Walked through the crowd. The aliens parted before her, still laughing. She was so small compared to them. Her arms looked like sticks next to their massive limbs. Her body seemed fragile enough to break with a single touch. Watched from the engineer's balcony above. Her hands gripped the railing so tight that her knuckles turned white. She had seen the scan results. She knew what's body had become, but knowing and believing were different things. On Earth's orbital station, Ho sat in a dark room with a dozen human commanders. They watched through a live video feed. No one spoke. No one breathed. Reached the platform. She stood before the blade. Up close, it was even more impressive. The metal seemed to drink in the light. The handle was warm beneath her hands. She could feel the weight of it pressing against the floor. 2,000 kilograms, the mass of a small vehicle, the weight of 20 men. She had trained for this moment for 18 months. Every night of pain, every morning of sore muscles, every meal carefully measured, every hour of sleep calculated for maximum recovery. She had broken her body down and rebuilt it hundreds of times. She had pushed past limits that other species did not even know existed. Now it was time to see if it was enough. Closed her eyes. She took a slow, deep breath. She let the laughter fade until there was only silence inside her mind. Then she opened her eyes. And she pulled. The temple went silent. His hands tightened around the handle. Her feet pressed hard against the stone floor. Her whole body became a single machine with one purpose: lift. At first, nothing happened. The blade sat on its platform like it had sat for 10,000 years, unmoving, uncaring, waiting to humble another warrior who thought they were strong enough. Then something changed. It started in its legs. The muscles fired in a pattern that human scientists had studied for centuries. Fast twitch fibers activated alongside slow twitch fibers. Her thighs, rebuilt through 18 months of impossible training, generated force that would have torn apart her younger body. Her calves, strengthened by thousands of kilometers of running, locked her feet to the floor like anchors. The force traveled up through her core. Her stomach muscles, her back muscles, her chest muscles all worked together. They had been torn and healed so many times that the tissue had grown denser than leather. Each fiber could pull harder than it was ever designed to pull. Then came her arms. Thin by standards, laughable by standards, but beneath that soft human skin was something new, something that had never existed before. Muscle built not through genetics but through suffering, through failure, through the simple human refusal to quit. The blade moved. 1 centimeter. The crowd's laughter died in their throats. 5 centimeters. His 4 eyes went wide with shock. 10 centimeters, 20, 50. Commandant stood up from his seat. His shell clicked as he moved forward. He had seen warriors try to lift this blade for 200 years. He knew what failure looked like. He knew what struggle looked like. This was something different. Did not roar like she did not make any sound at all. Her face was calm. Her breathing was controlled. Only her body showed the effort. Veins appeared on her neck. Sweat dripped from her forehead. Her thin arms shook like trees in a storm. But she did not stop. The blade rose past her knees, past her waist, past her chest. "Impossible," someone whispered. "This cannot be real," another voice said. But it was real. It was happening, right in front of thousands of witnesses from 12 star systems. Lifted the blade above her head. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The torches froze. The shadows held still. The entire temple became a painting of one small human holding the heaviest weapon ever forged. Screamed from the balcony. It was not a word. It was just sound. Pure human emotion released in a single burst. The scream broke the silence like a hammer breaks glass. On the orbital station, Ho stood up. His chair fell backward. His hands were shaking. The commanders around him were crying. Grown soldiers who had fought in wars were crying like children. In the temple held the blade. 1 second, 2, 3. Her body screamed at her to let go. Every cell in her muscles begged for rest. Her bones creaked under the weight. Her heart pounded so hard that she could hear it in her ears. 5 seconds, 7, 10. Then slowly, carefully, she lowered the blade back to its platform. The metal touched the stone with a soft sound. Stepped back, her legs were shaking. Her arms hung at her sides, too tired to lift. But she was standing. She was alive. She had done what only 9 others had done in 10,000 years. The temple remained silent. Commandant walked toward her. His steps echoed in the quiet room. He stopped 1 meter away and looked down at the small human who had just shaken his understanding of the universe. "How?" he asked. His voice was soft, almost afraid. "When you arrived, you could barely lift 200 kilograms. The stone was nearly impossible for you. How did you lift 10 times that weight?" Looked up at him. Her eyes were tired but clear. "You measured what I was," she said. "On my first day, on my worst day. You looked at me and decided that was all I would ever be." She paused to catch her breath. "But humans are not like other species. We are not born at our strongest. We are not finished when we arrive. We break, we heal, we grow. Then we break again and grow again. There is no limit. There is no maximum. There is only more." Was silent for a long moment. "All this time," he said slowly, "we thought humans were the weakest species in the galaxy." "We are," agreed, "on our first day, but we never stay on our first day." Behind her, the crowd began to stir. The shock was wearing off. The reality was setting in. A human had lifted the blade. A small, thin, weak-looking human had done what their greatest warriors could not. Pushed through the crowd. His face was twisted with anger and confusion. "This is a trick," he shouted. "Some kind of human technology, hidden machines in her body, something." Turned to face him. Even exhausted, even shaking, she met his 4 eyes without fear. "No tricks," she said. "No machines, just time, just work. Just the one thing humans have that you do not." "And what is that?" Smiled. It was the smile of someone who had finally reached the top of a mountain after climbing for years. We never stopped becoming more than we were. The ceremony was held 3 days later, stood at the center of the same temple where she had lifted the blade, but everything was different now. Commandant placed a golden symbol on her uniform, the symbol of a fleet commander, the highest rank a graduate could receive. By the power given to me by the Galactic Military Council, announced, I name of Earth the first human fleet commander in galactic history. The crowd did not laugh this time. They watched in silence, some with respect, some with fear, all with understanding that something had changed forever. Accepted the symbol with a small bow. She looked out at the faces of aliens who had mocked her for 18 months. She saw standing in the back, his 4 arms crossed, his face unreadable. She saw instructor who had tried so hard to make her fail. She felt no anger toward them. They had pushed her. They had made her stronger. In a strange way, she owed them thanks. After the ceremony, found her outside the temple. The engineer was crying and laughing at the same time. You actually did it, said. You really did it. We did it, corrected. I could not have survived without your help. They hugged. 2 humans on an alien world, far from home, celebrating a victory that would echo across the galaxy. That night called her brother. Ho's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than she remembered, tired but happy. The whole human fleet is celebrating, he said. You have given us something we have needed for 50 years, proof that we belong among the stars. I just lifted a heavy sword, said. Ho laughed. You did much more than that, little sister. You showed them what we really are, not weak, not limited, just patient. The years that followed proved Ho right. Commanded her fleet with skill and wisdom. She led battles that seemed impossible to win. She never lost faith in her crew. She never stopped training. Even as a commander, even with 1,000 soldiers under her command, she still woke up early every morning to push her body further. Her fame spread across the galaxy. Stories were told about the small human who lifted the heaviest blade. Young aliens heard the tale and wondered if their species had underestimated humanity all along. But the real change happened in the shadows. Intelligence agencies from every species began studying humans with new eyes. They compiled reports that made military leaders lose sleep at night. The reports all said the same thing. Humans were dangerous, not because of what they were, because of what they could become. The War College ran simulations of long-term conflicts with human forces. The results were terrifying. In short battles, humans lost. Their soldiers were weaker, slower, easier to kill. But in long battles, something strange happened. Human soldiers who survived their first fight came back stronger. Human soldiers who survived their 10th fight were worth 3 regular soldiers. Human soldiers who survived 100 fights became nearly impossible to stop. The simulations showed that in any war lasting more than 5 years, human forces would eventually overtake their opponents, not through superior numbers, not through better technology, just through adaptation, through growth, through the simple, endless human drive to become more. We have been measuring the wrong thing, Commandant said in a classified meeting. We measure species by their peak capability, by the maximum strength they can achieve, but humans have no peak. They simply keep rising, forever. The meeting room was silent. What do we do? A general asked. Thought for a long moment. We stop laughing at them, we start respecting them, and we pray we never have to fight them in a war that lasts more than a year. Served as fleet commander for 40 years. Her body aged but never stopped growing stronger. Even at 60, she could outfight cadets half her age. Her mind stayed sharp. Her will stayed strong. On the day of her retirement, a young alien cadet approached her. He was with a shell still smooth from youth. His eyes were full of the same confusion that Commandant had shown all those years ago. Commander, he said, May I ask you a question? Of course. What is the secret to human strength? How do you do what you do? Looked at him. Her hair was gray now. Her face was lined with age, but her hands were still calloused from decades of training. Her eyes still burned with the same fire that had carried her through that first year at the academy. We are born weak, she said. Weaker than almost every species in the galaxy. Our bobbies cannot walk for a year. Our children cannot survive alone. We are soft. We are fragile. We are easy to break. She paused. But we are not made to stay that way. Every failure breaks us. Every recovery rebuilds us stronger. You see our small bodies and you laugh. You measure us once and think you know our limits. She smiled, the same smile she had given in the temple 40 years ago. But you never see the years of breaking and reforging that happen inside. You never see the 10,000 nights of pain that turn weakness into strength. You never see what we become when we refuse to quit. The cadet bowed low. Thank you, Commander. Nodded and walked away. That evening she returned to Earth for the first time in decades. She stood on a hill overlooking the ocean and watched the sun set over her. The sky turned orange, then red, then purple. Somewhere out there, in academies and training halls across 12 star systems, a new lesson was being taught. A lesson written in the story of one small human who refused to stay weak. Never mock a human for being weak today. Fear what they will become tomorrow. Closed her eyes and felt the earth beneath her feet. She was home. She was finally home. And she knew that her story would live forever.